Hello, everyone. Welcome to Southeastern 14. We have a treat for you each and every Friday during this football season. We're going to have a special guest on with you, Jake Crain from the Daily Wire, Crain and Company, a show that's going like crazy. He's going to be on with us each and every Friday. But, guys, before we get Jake on here, we've just passed 10,000 subs. We're trying to catch Crain and Company over there. They got it rocking and rolling. So you help us do that. Hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications. I'm Blayne Gilmer. We talk SEC ball in here every single day. But without further ado, who you're on here to see, Mr. Jake Crain. Jake, thank you for joining us, man. First of all, I'm loving the old school hoodie there, the Houston Oilers.
Blayne, first off, I get more compliments on this thing. I got to give credit to my wife. We were in TJ Maxx and watching her navigate TJ Maxx. It's almost like watching Indiana Jones in some like hidden temple figure his way around. It's unbelievable. But I wasn't going to get it, and then she made me get it, and I get more compliments on this. I was getting compliments on this thing in our honeymoon in France, man. And it's funny, my father actually played for the Oilers back when they were in Houston. So it's my favorite, man. The baby blue goes super hard. I mean, it does, 100%.
Yeah. It's great. It's great stuff. And now Texas is all of SEC country now with everything that's coming in, with Texas coming into the league and Texas A&M. But Jake, without, even drawing it out too much, we're going to hop right into the first topic. Just so everybody knows, this is going to be Jake's Takes on Southeastern 14. You can catch Jake's Takes on his show over on the Daily Wire on Crain and Company, but he's going to be with us each and every week giving a version of Jake's Takes on some topics we're bringing to him. So we're going to go ahead and hit the first one here, Jake. SEC West chaos. If I were to ask you, is the SEC West primed for chaos in 2023? What would your take be on that, Jake?
Well, I don't know if you can call last year really chaos, but, not seeing Alabama win the West, I guess, is considered chaos now. But I think, Blayne, when you look at the conference from the top to the bottom, I think on the spectrum of who could do what, it's as wide open, to use the cliche, the Wild, Wild West. It really is. It's as wide open as it has been since I can remember. And I think that's a great thing. We actually compared it to the Big Ten East this morning on the show. There's no Rutgers in this division. There's no Indiana in this division. It's a really powerful division from the top to the bottom. I mean, it's hard to figure out who's going to be in the middle of it. And obviously, you got to start with Alabama. Even though LSU won the West last year in Brian Kelly's first year, the spectrum of where Alabama could finish, I think, is wider. I think it's anywhere between 9-3 and 12-0. I mean, you never want to sleep on Nick Saban. That's not a great business to be in. But when's the last time Alabama had to replace a left tackle and a quarterback in the same year? And in a transition year from an identity standpoint on offense. They're trying to go back to the bully ball days of Alabama where they just lined up, and we call them middle finger runs. They could just line up and run it whenever they wanted and get whatever they wanted. Defensively, yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, they had a monopoly on offensive and defensive linemen. And make no mistake, it is a quarterback in trenches league. It is a quarterback in trenches game. So when you look at where Alabama is right now in the quarterback battle, I think Ty Simpson's going to end up winning it, but we still don't know yet. There's some questions on whether they can get back to that dominant level up front. Because you look around the rest of the league, I mean, look at what LSU's bringing back. 4 or 5 starters on the offensive line, 2 NFL tackles. I think Will Campbell may end up being a top 5 pick before it's all said and done. They bring Jaden Daniels back. I love them getting Logan Diggs, adding him from Notre Dame in the backfield. And then you've got Malik Neighbors and the rest of the aliens they have running around out there wide. And that's not even talking about Mason Smith in the defense. So you look at Ole Miss. You look at Mississippi State, new system under Zach Arnett, which I think is going to benefit Will Rogers more. Some people look at me like I got 3 eyes when I say that, but I really think it's going to, and we can dive into that at some point. And then Arkansas, KJ Jefferson, Rocket Sanders, how will they be up front? Do they have enough pieces around them and enough depth on defense? And then Auburn with Hugh Freeze, man, and A&M, Bobby Petrino. So I say it's a long way of saying this. There are a lot more unknowns this year in the SEC West than there has been going into a season in a long time. And I think that's great for the conference. I think it's great for the division. And I do believe that lends itself to chaos, which is fantastic.
Yeah, I was just looking. I did a video the other day on, listen, quarterback's not the problem at Alabama. Your problem is offensive line depth. There's never been a time where Nick Saban's been like, okay, I've got a couple studs over here, but I really don't know who's going to be playing on this other side. And if one of those guys goes down, then we've got freshmen in the 2 deep. Like that's just not normal for Alabama.
And it's so hard, outside of quarterback, the transition from high school, starting as a freshman, in the trenches on the offensive line and the defensive line, that's the hardest spot to go in there and do it, just because physically, look, old man strength is a real thing when it comes to the trenches. And Alabama's got a ton of talent. They just had the #1 rated recruiting class in the history of recruiting, whatever it was last year, depending on where you look. So the talent's there, but the experience, what we call the unteachable intangible, the experience is not there. And that's something that you can't put into somebody. They've got to go through it, and you go through ups and downs. So again, Alabama doesn't typically have to replace symbiotic positions. What do I mean? Left tackle, quarterback, middle linebacker, defensive end. There's a lot of things that Alabama's having to replace this year. Like I said earlier, while they're transitioning identity-wise, system-wise, and scheme-wise, going back to what they used to be. So, look, I know they play LSU at home. You do got to go on the road to Auburn. You get Texas at home week 2. I think that's going to be a great litmus test, not only for Alabama, but for Texas as well. So, yeah, I think Alabama, I don't want to say that I think that they're just going to be an average team, because they have too many above-average players to be an average team. But I think they're going to be a little bit mortal. Achilles wasn't dipped in the water all the way, and that's what ended up getting them. I think it may be the whole leg this year for Alabama, though.
It is crazy. And you listed all the quarterbacks out there. That's what makes me like the SEC West, even with Auburn naming Peyton Thorne as their starter. I think Peyton Thorne is a cool customer. He's a guy who's played big time football. He's going to bring some calmness, I think, to Auburn a little bit in their system. But you have him, KJ Jefferson, Will Rogers, like you said, whoever it ends up, it could be either Jackson Dart or Spencer.
Both with a ton of experience, both very experienced guys
who have played. Jaden Daniels. People crap a little bit on Jaden Daniels and saying he missed some deep shots last year or was afraid to pull the trigger. I'm like, guys, he didn't even know he was going to be the starter until right before into camp. Now he's had a whole off season for that rapport. I think year 1 to year 2, and you mentioned it with freshman linemen. They had 2 freshman tackles last year. How can you not think LSU is going to be better with Jaden Daniels year 2 and the tackles being experienced now?
Well, a couple things on there. Number one, and it's not just Jaden Daniels. I mean, you got Nussmeier right behind him. I think LSU, from a quarterback depth standpoint, it was huge having Nussmeier decide to stay. Because, again, you could have hopped in the transfer portal. He could have gone and been the guy somewhere. We know Jaden got a little beat up last year. We talked to him in SEC Media Days. He's a little bit thicker, but he's still not a thick guy. I mean, Jaden Daniels is not a big guy, and he does like to run. And I think, last year, and this is something that we've harped on. I've talked to Blue in the Face about this. About halfway through the year, he was at 8 touchdowns, no interceptions. And somebody asked Brian Kelly, they're like, hey, man, how great is it that Jaden Daniels, he's not turning the ball over? And Brian Kelly said, listen, I don't want him to turn the ball over, but we're not getting a return on our investment because Jaden Daniels isn't utilizing the deep third of the field enough. Not that he'd never throw it, but he wasn't giving his receivers opportunities to go, look, if you're even, you're leaving. That's the rule at wide receiver. You got to let them go. Sometimes you got to throw the 50-50 ball and let them turn it into a 70-30 ball. And then all of a sudden,
got the dudes to get it.
He's got look at, I mean, it's like the Avengers when you look at LSU when it comes down to athleticism. There's a reason they can win national championships with one guy who ate grass and another guy that probably smoked it. There's a reason for that. They have unbelievable talent. But when you look at when Jaden started utilizing the deep third, it changed them offensively. How? Well, that first half of the year, every time it seemed like they ran it, there was 30 guys in the box. You want to know why? Because Jaden went and challenged him down the field. Every time he'd throw an intermediate route or a short game route, or he'd throw the screen, it was like 2 guys were hitting the receiver or the running back at once. They were, because everybody was creeped up. But once that started happening down the field, it opened up everything else. And I think a little bit of it was, don't forget, when he decided to go to LSU from Arizona State, what was the knock on Jaden Daniels? Well, he turns the ball over. He's lazy with the ball. He puts the ball up for grabs too much. And you can sit here and say, I'll block out the noise and don't listen to it. But I guarantee you, in those meeting rooms when he got there, and with Brian Kelly when he got there, they made sure and showed him that tape from Arizona State and said, if you do this in the SEC, we are going to get murdered. I don't care how talented we are around, because turnovers lead to losses. So I think there's a lot of it. Now he's comfortable. I think them getting rid of some of the prima donnas they had on last year's team, even though they won the SEC West. I love Malik Neighbors. I especially love Malik Neighbors on 3rd and 6. That's when I really love Malik Neighbors. But I'm telling you right now, where did LSU get worse? Where did they get worse? You lose Ojulari and Ali Gay off the edge, but you got some great guys in from the transfer portal. And the minute I worry about LSU's athleticism up front is the minute we all need to look up and see the asteroid that's about to hit Earth, because that's about the only way.
Exactly. So it sounds like we're on the same page in terms of LSU, I think, is only going to get better, but the rest of the SEC West is definitely got weapons, and they've definitely got quarterback play and things like that. So it's going to be a lot of fun to watch week in and week out. Now, Jake, I want to move on to SEC expansion, conference realignment. It's been a big topic. I've kind of been, at first I was thinking about everybody, okay, who should the SEC go out and get to make them stronger and stuff like that. But then I got to thinking, I was like, when you go out, right, and you go and you're looking at like a nightclub, or you're looking at a restaurant or something like that, and you walk around the corner and you see, man, look at that line to get in there. Like, I wonder what's going on there. It's because they're the places that are the places to be, they limit their spots. They make those spots special. And I wonder if Greg Sankey and company should say, hey, we're not going to expand. We're going to stay at 16 because we're going to keep the premium status here of the SEC, and we're not going to water it down by adding some teams that may be not up to par.
Yeah, look, I call it selective aggression, right? Because at the end of the day, there is not – even with the movement we've had, that's why I think what Brett Yormark's done with the Big 12 has been brilliant, because there's only so many brands and markets together that are worth collecting, right? Everybody, that's the perfect mix, right? You talk about in beer pong, right? Oh, I got the perfect mix. I can't miss now. It's a brand and a market. UCF, growing brand, big market. BYU, it's a religion. You got a religion, like it's a huge market, big brand. BYU's a big brand. Houston, big brand, huge market. You can recruit what I call the state of Houston and be fine. You can walk out there, throw a rock, and hit a 5-star in all 3 sports. Cincinnati, big market, big brand, just made the college football playoff. Can't believe they hired Satterfield, but that's a story for another day. And then obviously Arizona, Arizona State, Colorado, Utah, all that. But if you're the SEC, I'm not budging. Number one, I have leverage. Okay, but I'm not budging unless you are a big ticket item, right? Obviously, Texas and Oklahoma, huge. You'd be dumb not to take them. If you can get Florida State, you get them. If you can get Clemson, you get them. If you can get North Carolina, you get them. If you can get Virginia Tech, a brand that not a lot of people are talking about, but when you think about Virginia, Blayne, that state, who do you think about in football first?
I think people our age, we're definitely going to think of Mike Vick and Virginia Tech and all that time. So.
Inner Sandman, Blacksburg. Right? I don't think about Virginia. I'm not out here trying to finish first in my law class. No, if that's great. If you do, Suits is one of my favorite shows. But at the end of the day, we're talking about football. So it's look where the ACC is right now. You're going to bring in Stanford and Cal? Okay, nice. Into the Atlantic Coast Conference. You're right. The only one out there right now, outside of the ones I just listed, in my opinion, and you can throw Miami in there, is obviously Notre Dame, right? Notre Dame didn't come to the SEC. So if you're Greg Sankey, you can be selectively aggressive. And I think all this Florida State, Clemson talk to the Big Ten, I think it's them just kind of flaunting and dancing around for the SEC, say, hey, Greg Sankey, look, it's like all of a sudden – you just started dating. Now you're trying to impress her by making other people like you. Like, I get it. I understand what you're doing. But at the end of the day, if you're the SEC, you don't have to reach. Old bull, young bull, you're the old bull. Let's walk down there, man.
But do you think it's a point of necessity even right now that they must kind of cut the Big Ten off from gaining even more teams? Or do you think with the brands and the regionality, I know you're a guy that's big on conferences should be regional, and I know Florida State and Clemson would remain in that, but the SEC's branding and the SEC's regionality is still intact and on point right now. Do you think they need to make that preemptive move, maybe more so for a Florida school like a Florida State or Miami, just to prevent the Big Ten from the recruiting inroads down there? Or would are Florida State and Clemson a must in your opinion that you have to keep them from going to the Big Ten?
Well, I think it's like Coach Red Bayou said in The Water Boy. You know what my daddy said was the only thing that was better than one crawfish dinner? It's 3 crawfish dinners. And look, I don't buy this talk of, the SEC, that, they're good. They're not out here looking to add anybody. Look, the slogan of the conference is it just means more. Okay, I was born at night, but not last night. The SEC is the predator. They're not the prey. They're not sitting back here just going to be ho-hum and happy. Now, they don't have to do anything. I think they'd be fine either way. And like I said earlier, I'm not a lawyer, but I don't understand, even with the leverage payments that they're talking about with the ACC, which they could change within themselves at any point in time, how Florida State and Clemson is going to go to the Big Ten. Now, I will never underestimate a lawyer's ability to be able to make an argument, but, I haven't seen the files. I haven't seen the papers. But my question is not if or when for Florida State or Clemson if they try to go to the Big Ten. It's how. How is that going to work? Now, what I do know is that the ACC has a contract with ESPN, and I know that
Like
SEC
2036
has a contract.
or something?
Yeah, look, the SEC has a contract with ESPN. So if there was any wiggle room in there, I think it'd be a whole heck of a lot easier to keep the same media entity and just slide them into the SEC as opposed to let Fox come down here and snatch them. Now, look, the Big Ten's already going to add USC and UCLA. We know that. Now, Oregon and Washington. I'm wondering how much the Big Ten is willing to move to go get Florida State and Clemson, and now go from having to take all these West Coast teams, okay, because Oregon and Washington helps build that bridge to the Big Ten, right? That's going to help the smaller sports because college football hadn't broken off from all the other ones yet, which I think is coming down the pipe. But now you throw in Florida State and Clemson in the mix. Imagine that travel schedule now.
Yeah.
Like imagine adding that. So I think a lot of it is not if or when, it's how. And I think the SEC knows that. I think they know Florida State's putting on all their makeup and dressing as good as they can to try and impress them. But Greg Sankey, he's not going to be tricked. This isn't an M. Night Shyamalan movie. Like the SEC moves at their own pace.
Man, the thing that I'm going to just chuckle heavily at is when we get to this 12-team playoff next year and 4 or 5 SEC teams make it and it blows, everybody goes nuts because guess what? What we just talked about with the SEC West, there's not a harder division out there in football. And I know we're not going to have divisions anymore, but all these teams are going to be there. Now, I know there's probably going to be another loss or two. An undefeated season is going to be harder when you got Alabama and Texas and Georgia and LSU and everybody playing each other more frequently. But my goodness, if it doesn't make these SEC teams even more deserving of a playoff spot when it comes down to it. If you're talking about getting the best 12, there's got to be probably 4 or 5 SEC teams in there every year.
Yeah, well, I mean, what has the standard been pretty much? Like 10-2? Like that's about the level that I know LSU was kind of an anomaly last year. If they'd have beaten Georgia, it'd have gotten really, really interesting down the stretch on who they would have let in the playoff. But the threshold's been like, all right, 10-2, and you're going to have to hope to get in. Well, now that it goes to 12, the right 9-3, and the way you finish the year in the SEC, now that you're adding talk about strength of schedule, being in the criteria, being in the rubric of who the committee chooses. I mean, look, and they'll complain, they'll cry, and they'll kick and scream about it. But every time any rule's been changed or any teams have been added to the postseason, the rich get richer, right? The rich are going to get richer. Typically, there's only 3, maybe 4 teams each year that have a chance to win the Natty. And 4, I think I'm being nice saying that. And I do think it will help parity over time. Right? Parity isn't a switch that's flipped. It's like fixing an economy. You don't switch a flip or flip a switch and fix an economy. It's a lot of good choices made over time that ends up increasing that. And I think it will do that. But you mean to tell me that the SEC is not going to benefit more from a 12-team playoff with that many at larges? Come on now.
Yeah, it's going to be crazy. One team that I think is going to benefit in the SEC, and our third topic here, 2023 Kentucky Wildcats.
Yeah.
Jake, that I'm high on Kentucky. I was high on them last year. I thought that, hey, they had all the pieces, but I discounted how big of a loss Liam Coen from that team as the play caller was going to be last year. And then I did not think they would be as bad on the offensive line. I think they've fortified that on the offensive line this year. Liam Coen comes back. Plus, you've got Devin Leary there. And am I crazy to think that Kentucky – has one of the better trios at wide receiver in all the SEC, and Dane King, Barian Brown, and Tavion Robinson?
No, it's and bringing Liam back is huge for those guys too. Look, we all know that Barian is an absolute witch, 100%, and you got a supporting cast around him. I like them bringing in Ray Davis from Vanderbilt, the running back. I think that kid's got a little ability. Here's who Kentucky is, and I think Liam understands that. Understands who Kentucky is. Kentucky is a physical team that likes to slide under the radar and go out, play good defense, and get a little bit creative on offense. Liam gets creative enough where obviously they're not in the Eddie Grand system of 1935 style offense. But the offensive line was such a big letdown for Kentucky last year. And I know they were beat up, right? I know they had trouble protecting Will. I like the transfer portal moves they made in the offensive line. They kicked a couple guys right. They moved Yeager to center. They bumped guards back to their normal spots. I think Kentucky's going to be better up front on the offensive line. And we all know, look, balance keeps you on the beam when it comes to anything in football, not just offense, but defense and team as well. But Kentucky has to be able to run the ball more effectively this year to be able to open that up for guys like Barian and Dane and Tavion to be able to go do what they do. And I think that with Liam now, with what he likes to do formationally, with what his motion game is really good. He does a really good job of motioning you into what he wants to get you in and then taking advantage of space. And Devin Leary, we had the Peck issue last year and remember all the raving reviews about NC State going in there. They could make the playoff. Watch out for NC State. I think Devin Leary is a little bit pissed off to me, and he should be. Yeah. He should be. And he throws a really pretty ball. I think he does have nuance as a passer. And I think he has that chip on his shoulder. How many people are really talking about Devin Leary this year? You're not hearing nearly as much about Devin Leary this year as you did last year, and I think that's good. I think the same thing is happening for Kentucky as a team. Kentucky on defense, that with Mark Stoops, they're always going to be fine. They're going to be a top 25 defense, top 30 defense. They're going to hold you to field goals in the red zone. They're going to be tough against the run. But now you bring back Liam Coen, a guy who has been in the league before, has had success in the league before. You match him with Devin Leary. And Wan'Dale Robinson did a lot for Kentucky now. I don't think people really realize how good you see him now out in the NFL, what he's doing. And he's little as can be, but quicker than a hiccup. But he hit a lot of problems for Kentucky. I like the Wildcats in the underdog role. I like their schedule a lot, too. When you look at that, that's huge. If they're able to end the year strong at South Carolina and at Louisville, I don't think Kentucky finishing in second in the East is crazy at all, because there's a lot of question marks about Joe Milton right now, too. I got to see it.
Well, you mentioned that schedule. Ball State, Eastern Kentucky, Akron, Vanderbilt, Florida, who I don't think Florida's what Florida used to be, at least not this year. Give Napier time. He's going to get it there, but they don't have the horses this year. 5-0. If you do what you're supposed to, you're 5-0 going into Athens to play Georgia. Probably a loss there, even though Kentucky always plays Georgia tough. Then you get Missouri at home. What I was pointing out with this schedule, and you and I were talking before, that Florida game is at home. The Missouri game, home. Tennessee game at home. Alabama game at home. And, oh, by the way, that Alabama game, Alabama comes off of playing LSU. So Alabama has a physical contest against LSU and then has to turn around and go to Lexington in November. It's going to be cold up there. The Wildcats are going to be physical in that game. I'm just saying, don't be shocked if some of these big-time games that are at home for Kentucky end up going their way at Kroger Field this year. Is that a fair assessment?
No, it is. First off, I hate they call it Kroger Field. I can't stand that. That's the worst stadium name I've ever heard. I feel like I need to put in my phone number to maybe save $8 on groceries when I go up there. But I agree with you 100%. That Tennessee game is massive. It is
bye week. They get a bye week before the Tennessee game.
The schedule could not – if you have to play Georgia, Bama, and Tennessee, the way it lines up, it could not line up any better for Tennessee. And again, look, you got to win the games that you probably should win. I think Missouri's a little sneaky too. I really like what they return on defense. That's going to be a physical game. But I would not be shocked if you looked up and Kentucky was 9-3 at the end of the year. Now, every team has to catch breaks, right? Every team has to catch breaks. That Georgia game, you're probably going to take an L. But I'm with you 100%, Blayne. And not a lot of people – look, Tennessee's a sexy pick, and I get it. Josh Heupel, if Joe Milton can throw the changeup, Tennessee's a problem. They're a legit problem, and they get Georgia at home, right? Florida, look, I believe in Graham Mertz about as much as I believe in the Snuffleupagus. I don't. I'm sorry. Look, if I want somebody just to throw checkdowns, heck, I'll do it for half the scholarship. But at the end of the day, Kentucky, the experience, how good they're going to be up front, the improvement up front, how much better and more experienced they're going to be at the skill position, and quarterback, obviously, Will Levis. As much as I didn't love where the Titans taking him, he was still a really good college player. But at the end of the day, man, Kentucky, second in the East is not a far stretch at all. And you win that Tennessee game, and you're humming along.
Yeah, I just can't believe when you look at the schedule, like we said, all those home games, and before you get, not only does Kentucky get a bye before Tennessee plays at Alabama the week before.
Yeah.
And then and as I mentioned, Alabama, the week before they play Kentucky, plays LSU. You could not ask for anything better if you're Mark Stoops.
No excuses.
No excuses. If they're going to be good, this is the year to be good. Jake, tell everybody, if they don't already, which you should be tuned in to Crain and Company every morning. But tell them what you got going on over there on the Daily Wire.
Man, number one, I'm really excited to be with you guys every Friday. Love what y'all are doing. In the space, it's fantastic. It's great content. The fans win when you have shows like this. Congrats on getting to 10K too. It's one of the many 10,000 sets that you guys are going to get to, and really excited for y'all and excited to be a part of it. But yeah, look, we do a live show every weekday. We're also going to start doing our Sunday recap show in the mornings. So the easiest way is to go to YouTube. Type in Crain and Company, CRAIN and Company. We're live from 6:30 a.m. to 8 a.m. Central. We have live call-ins. We have a live chat. If you like talking sports the way they used to talk sports before it got all crazy and they tried to split all of us up, then come hang out with us. That's what you're going to get. Just like you guys, talking ball. It's great stuff. And we dive down. I coached for 9 years, 6 at the Division I level. My other co-host, David Coen, played quarterback at Michigan. No, he's not the pitcher. Like he says, he never played for the Mets. Then my brother played wide receiver at Western State, Colorado. So we dive really deep into it. We got predictions coming out next week. We're going to go conference by conference, day by day, starting with the ACC on Monday. So come hang out with us, and then make sure you check this out as well.
Jake, I think next week, because as Jake mentioned, he's going to be here with us each and every week. I think next week you and I should talk a little bit about Auburn, the Auburn Tigers, and about a little bit of recruitment momentum, because as we record this, we're a couple of days from Auburn landing yet another big fish here for Hugh Freeze and company. They are just continuing to reel in 4- and 5-star guys with Hugh Freeze there. Alignment amongst the Auburn program, boosters, head coach, everybody involved.
Just go 8-4, please. Just please go 8-4.
Absolutely. So we're going to talk a little bit of Auburn next week, and we'll have another couple of topics here for you. That is Jake Crain. Follow him at Jake Crain _ on Twitter. See Crain and Company on YouTube. We'll put their stuff, of course, in the description of this video. And then follow me at bgilmer18, and then at 14 Southeastern is our handle on Twitter. Guys, subscribe. It is absolutely free. Like, turn on notifications. For Jake Crain, I am Blayne Gilmer. We'll catch you guys next week here for more Jake's Takes on Southeastern 14.